NRG picking up game 1 in the series against Fox, but a very long game, also very even up until the end. Before we dive into anything, I want to take one more look at the final team fight that happened in the bot lane, actually in NRG's base, that kind of allowed them the easy walk up the mid lane to finish off this game here as it rolls out.
I mean, you see what Fox is thinking. They know that GBM's top side, he has to recall, get down there, so they're trying to push that inhib, but Quas does a really good job zoning them off the inhib so they can't finish it, and then he gets a really nice engage here.
Yeah, I mean, we see Froggen popping that zonies without the ultimate on, trying to buy a little bit of time, but it's just a distinct lack of damage, it felt like, coming from this Fox lineup into what was such a tanky team composition on the side of NRG.
So if you notice the way that NRG has been playing the fights, GBM and Oki are almost always together, hitting the same target a lot of times. But that synergy wasn't there between Keith and Froggen. We had a lot of fights where Froggen's just going in, but where's Keith? Keith isn't backing him up, and Swain isn't enough to tear down 2 massive front lines with the shields from Karma and Viktor.
Yeah, I think where that was most evident actually comes a little bit earlier in the game, 40 minutes into the game. A 3-for-0 that NRG picks up around the Baron. You see Froggen doing an insane amount of work in the front line, but as Keith tries to follow up, he's literally tickling the front line of this NRG team comp.
Right, NRG have been forcing around Baron a lot this game. They get a turn off onto the Fox lineup here, and then it looks like a pretty close fight. It looks like NRG's in a good spot, and then Froggen starts going off here. He gets onto the back line. He's hitting all the carries with his damage, and then as he starts chasing through this fight, Oki just barely manages to live. Froggen has to pop his Zhonya's, and then he starts running out of mana here. As he's chasing, you see that the bar's just going down, and then he runs out of mana before they're able to finish off GBM, and then you see that Keith just doesn't do any damage relative to the rest of the team. So, like, Froggen runs out of mana, there's nothing more to do, and it's just so obvious that they can't deal with the tankiness that comes out of the NRG lineup.
Yeah, there was an issue with kind of the gold distribution on Fox. At that point, Froggen already at his full 6 items, but a noticeable lack of an eye edge on Keith in that fight.
So he finished the completed Mortal Reminder and the Mortal Reminder plus a pen item and didn't have the Infinity Edge until like 15 minutes later. And that's just not enough, because while the regeneration from Graga and Maokai is significant, the armor penetration and the Infinity Edge will do a lot more damage. So because of that lack of damage, you know, he was just unable to do anything remotely important for NRG to keep him as a threat. And you notice him that he was playing scared, but kept constantly pushing up to try to hit them, but the damage just wasn't there. So one threat composition is not going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at these team compositions, so we're backtracking all the way back now to Champion Select. I mean, again, you look at the Fox lineup and you say, okay, Fizz in the top lane has been a very stellar pick. Swain, fantastic. Rek'sai, Ashe, considered one of the top ADCs right now, and Braum, a very solid support. So again, as you know, if I take just a quick glance at it, I want to say they drafted a fantastic comp, and yet for whatever reason, once they got to those 6 items late game team fights, it didn't seem like they had the damage or maybe the focus to really eat through this Maokai, Gragas, and then Karma shielded team.
Well, I think is that they're just going to get outscaled at some point during the game, and they had opportunities where they were in the lead, and if they pushed through there, they would have won. But the problem was, like, that first Baron that NRG was basically able to force.
They got that 50-50.
Yeah, it was a 50-50. That's a critical breakpoint in the game where if you stop that play, you took the inhib down, Fizz just needs, or the inhib turret, Fizz just goes back down there, finishes the inhib off at any point. But because they get the Baron, it keeps them in the game. They get the team gold. And if they just didn't get that Baron, or, it, you know, God forbid, Fox takes that Baron, they snowball through that game. But the game continued to stall out. NRG was just barely hanging on. I think they hit this kind of like break point where Swain just can't deal with that tankiness anymore.
One of the key players and factors in this NRG victory is Santorin. He's our player of the game, 1-0 and 14 on Gragas. Some fantastic ultimates, really splitting up the fight, and then as we mentioned, being one of those 2 frontliners that just creating that wall, so much protection that allowed both GBM and Sivir to focus on one person.
What I really liked about his Gragas play was that if you're a Gragas player and you're against Braum, you know that Braum shield blocks all your spells. So you have to be really intelligent with how you use your ultimate, particularly when Braum is on the map. And a lot of times, we never really saw him botch ultimates and throw them out when the Braum ult was up. He'd always just wait for the shield to go down, now use the ultimate. And that shows a lot of presence of mind to be able to understand how he has to play the champion in these situations. And, you know, to his credit, he did split Keith a lot of times from his team, preventing him from doing damage. So the ultimates from Gragas don't all the time have to be get the enemy into us, get him away from us so that we
Right.
can focus on certain targets while they're not dealing DPS to our tanks.
Showing a little bit of mastery on that champion. All in all, very close first game between these two teams. They've got a little bit more time to gear up for game 2. While they do that, quick update over on NALCS 1. We have Team Liquid out to a 1-game lead over CLG, and that's off the back end of some impressive play out of Dardoch in the early game, really focusing into that top lane and getting Lorlo ahead on that Aurelia.
Yeah, he made plays all over the map at the beginning of this game. He stole some blues away. Here you see him forcing the flash, and then return ganking onto the Swain. And they get to snowball this matchup really hard in Lorlo's favor, and it was off the back of Dardoch's stellar play.
What I really want to point out about that dive is you can see just by how much time Dardoch was outpacing Smithy, because like, Smithy can read the play, but he's just leaving the map at this time. He's just exiting the base, heading top, and noticing that this play is happening. Dardoch is faster, gets the play done before Smithy's able to even catch the wave. So just completely out-jungled.
Yeah, he has really good game sense. We were both commenting that Graves was on his way to stop that first dive, and they just kind of felt that was going to happen. They kind of forced it early, and that's the kind of game sense that you really need at the highest level.
Well, Liquid will be happy to have Dardoch back in the roster as they do come out to an early lead against CLG. They're currently in game 2 over on NALCS 1, about 8 minutes in. CLG, slight advantage in that, so if you'd like to take a look in and see how that game is playing out, please do so. Of course, we're going to have to take a quick break over on NALCS 2 while NRG and Fox gear up for game 2. Stick around, we'll be back in 3.5.